Please welcome the new leader of Canada's NDP, Avi Lewis.
Thank you, everyone.
The federal NDP have a new leader, left-wing eco-socialist Avi Lewis.
My pronouns are she, they. I'm from Ontario.
But what if I told you that the real story is not about the new leadership, and it's not about that chaotic convention that received international attention for all the wrong reasons? But don't worry, we will show clips of that.
I call this question, Madam and Chairs.
Again, thank delegates not to call me Madam Chair or Madame la Présidence. I'm a non-binary person. My pronouns are they, them, and their.
The real story here is much bigger and much worse for the NDP. It is that the NDP may be too far gone to save.
Hello, I was standing here with my gender equity card before you called on the previous speaker.
Now, this may have negative implications for Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, but we will get to that later in the video. The NDP's current problems are actually because the NDP stopped being the NDP. Allow me to explain, but first, my name is Elie. I've worked in Canadian politics for the last decade. And in this video, which I've divided into 5 simple parts, I'm going to explain how the NDP's major blunder led to its downfall, with that major mistake being the abandoning of its roots as a party of the working class and replacing it with a woke ideology that working class people can't understand, yet alone relate to or feel part of.
Yesterday, this card was used in an inappropriate manner in terms of gender.
And things have gotten so bad now that prominent New Democrat politicians are calling out Avi Lewis by name. But before we get into that, please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, comment your thoughts down below, and consider becoming a paid channel member for less than $5 a month. Journalism and commentary 1-year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government is the solution. You have to rebuild the foundation. You have to retell the story.
Market conservative other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask. I think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged.
Oil and gas exports. That's something that we in the federal NDP do not think serves Canadians.
Part 1. Meet the new leader. On Sunday, Avi Lewis was elected as the new leader of the federal New Democratic Party, winning 56% of the vote. He defeated rivals Heather McPherson, Tenille Johnston, Rob Ashton, and Tony McWhale. Lewis comes from a powerful Canadian political family. His grandfather, David Lewis, also led the federal NDP in the 1970s, and his father, Stephen Lewis, was the leader of the Ontario NDP. Avi Lewis spent much of his adult life in media, hosting shows on the CBC, as well as on Qatari network Al Jazeera. And he worked as an academic. In 2015, Avi Lewis was a key figure behind a document called the LEAP Manifesto, which called for things like phasing out fossil fuels, ending new pipelines, rapidly shifting to renewable energy, and creating frameworks to address inequality, colonialism, and racism. This LEAP manifesto was widely criticized as being fringe and radical, including by fellow New Democrats. For example, former NDP leader Thomas Mulcair said that such document would make the party unelectable. And in 2016, Maclean's magazine, one of the biggest magazines in the country, put Avi Lewis on its cover with the words, "How to Kill the NDP." About 10 years later, the NDP membership have chosen to embrace Avi Lewis, whose platform includes having government-run grocery stores, government-run telecom companies, a government-owned pharmaceutical maker, free public transit, phasing out pipelines, and quote-unquote justice for migrant workers. Lewis has also mused about defunding the Canadian military.
Who said it? Who said it? Somebody behind me said that. Was it me? Was it you? No. You sure? If it was me, I'd admit it, buddy. Was it you or not? If it was me, I'd admit it. What'd you say then? I didn't say nothing. It wasn't me. It was a gentleman behind me, I guess. Who is it then? Point it out. I have no idea who it was, buddy.
Part 2. The collapse of the NDP. Critics in and out of the NDP long feared that Avi Lewis would destroy the party if he ever became leader. But the thing is, the NDP has already been destroyed by his predecessor, Jagmeet Singh. Back in 2011, under then leader Jack Layton, who was a moderate who appealed to working class voters, the NDP had its best result ever, finishing in second place, being official opposition and winning 103 seats across the country in 8 out of 10 provinces. And in 2015, under Thomas Mulcair, another moderate, the NDP was polling in first place. However, that NDP government never materialized because Justin Trudeau saw a quick rise to fame and he overtook the NDP and the NDP finished in third. That said, they still had a very decent 44 seats, making them a very considerable and important third party. It is the same moderate pragmatism that has made the NDP popular in several provinces, including in Manitoba. But at the federal level, the party opted to replace Mulcair with Jagmeet Singh. And that is when things began to go downhill. In Singh's first election as leader of the NDP in 2019, the party lost almost half of its seats, finishing with just 24 seats. And then came the 2025 election, where the party almost collapsed. It received just 6% of the national popular vote and got just 7 seats in the House of Commons, losing official party status, meaning that the House of Commons no longer recognized the NDP as an official party, and Jagmeet Singh lost his own seat. But it gets worse because the NDP didn't just lose seats, it lost out on a lot of money. In 2025, less than 50 of the 343 candidates the NDP ran got enough votes to qualify for an Elections Canada rebate, a rebate that helps parties recover election costs, which are massive. The NDP under Jagmeet Singh failed for 3 reasons that are all connected to the party abandoning the working class for the woke elite. Number 1, Singh came across as uninspiring and inauthentic. This was a guy going across the country claiming to be a champion of the working class while wearing very expensive bespoke suits, wearing a Rolex, flying business class, and going around Ottawa in a Maserati, while also blasting landlords despite his own family having investment properties. Many voters just saw right through that as hypocritical opportunism. Number 2 was his supply in confidence coalition deal with the Liberal Party, in which the NDP agreed to prop up the Liberals and a lot of their policies which hurt the working class. And part 3, he opposed projects, including pipelines, that were critical for workers and working class jobs. But here's the thing. Avi Lewis is seen as more left-wing than Jagmeet Singh and may in fact be the most far-left leader in the party's history.
My pronouns are she, her, elle, and en français. We are a working class party.
Part 3, the Workers' Party. The NDP is supposed to be a workers' party, even though it no longer is at the moment. The NDP was founded in 1961 as a joint project between the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, a pro-Labour party, and the Canadian Labour Congress, a national union organization. And the party's signature policies were economic. They pushed for policies that they believed would help the workers and that were popular with working class people, including universal health care, public pensions, expanded old age security, stronger labor rights, and better protections for collective bargaining. At the time, the NDP and their pro-working class brand and message resonated. There was one study that had found that the working class was more likely to support the NDP than any other group. But things changed. One article in the publication Perspective Journal puts it as, the NDP has transformed from a technology-neutral, industrially ambitious party demanding growth to improve the lives of workers, often through crown corporations, into one dominated by a low-energy, pastoralist vision of scattered rooftop solar panels and wind turbines. And the working class started abandoning the party. A recent and very evident example was during this leadership race. One of the candidates, Rob Ashton, was a union leader and was endorsed by unions that had over 650,000 members. And yet, Ashton only received around 4,000 votes, meaning he didn't even get 1% of the membership of those unions to vote for him. And meanwhile, the Conservatives under Poilievre have been gaining support amongst the working class And in the last election, they gained seats from the NDP.
It's hard as a racialized and transgender delegate to sometimes use this card and speak up, speak to somebody in front of me in line. Parts of my lived experience I'd like to speak. A cisgender woman had spoken over me.
Part 4, the woke versus the workers. The thing for the NDP is that woke ideology is not compatible with the values of ordinary working class people. One of the people who makes this argument very well and very clear is a columnist and author named Batya Ungar-Sargon, based in the United States. He argues that the entire woke vocabulary was developed as a smokescreen for the pillaging of the working class by leftist elites. She notes that with this language, it means that people don't have to address issues of class, using an obsession with race instead to paper over the real inequality. And you could see this woke versus workers friction within the NDP convention itself. One of the things the party received international attention for was for having these so-called equity cards, which were cards to identify party members as being, quote, part of a marginalized group, which is basically anyone who's not a white man. And these people got special privileges, but here's the thing, and here's the fatal flaw. Under the so-called equity card, a non-binary lawyer making 6 figures got to speak ahead of a white man worker who makes a working class wage and works in tough working class conditions because this lawyer is deemed to be more oppressed than the worker, and therefore they do not get to speak first, the lawyer does. This is an absurdity that leaves behind the people who physically work every day to sustain and run our society. And to make matters worse, the leftist environmentalist ideology of Avi Lewis is fundamentally anti-working class because these sorts of agendas raise the cost of living for the working class while prioritizing the wealthy who can afford things like electric cars. And when it comes to the energy sector, it means putting working class people out of jobs. This is part of why Avi Lewis is now being called out by name by NDP leaders in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi said, quote, "It is clear that the direction of the federal party under this new leader is not in the interests of Alberta." Meanwhile, the leader of the Saskatchewan NDP, Carla Beck, told Lewis, quote, "The positions that you have taken when it comes to national resource development are ideological and unrealistic and would hurt Saskatchewan workers, communities, and industries."
The Maserati Marxist over there.
Who wants to tax your gas? You're both out of touch. Canadians are out of money. How about a carbon tax election?
Part 5, what this all means for Pierre Poilievre. Now for the question that many conservatives care about. What does this all mean for Poilievre? That is because traditionally, the conservatives have benefited from a strong NDP. There are some who believe that Avi Lewis's radical agenda may actually attract some liberals and take vote away from Carney. This is what my friend Cian Bexty, who is a political commentator and journalist over at Juno News, argued, saying on X, quote, "Left-wing Canadians are a few IQ points away from not being able to breathe. They are going to love Avi Lewis, and Mark Carney's honeymoon with the left is over." But others aren't so sure about that. Amy Ham, who writes for the National Post, noted, quote, "It's possible that there are disillusioned Liberal voters who will be willing to move or move back to the NDP as they perceive Carney's government shifting more to the right, but I suspect that number will be insignificant." Similarly, political strategist Fred Delory, he wrote a Substack and noted that he remains deeply unconvinced that Avi Lewis will be able to rack up large amounts of vote. And on the contrary, he's worried that Avi Lewis and his radical agenda isn't just going to sink the federal party, it will also bring down the successful provincial moderate versions of the NDP. And if that is true, then Pierre Poilievre must keep doing the work he's been doing to expand his voter base by doing things like reaching out to new media, including the Joe Rogan podcast, getting more working class voters and more Canadians to join his tent. My friends, the moral of this story is simple. Go woke, go broke. And yes, this also applies to the NDP. Because the truth is, woke ideology is not compatible with pro-workers' values. Woke ideology is an out-of-touch elitist ideology that alienates working class people. And if you're a party of the working class and you go woke, well, you will go broke. This is why parties should never abandon their base, and there's a lesson there to be learned. Anyways, that's what I think of the NDP. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you thought of those clips from the convention. So share your thoughts down below. Be sure you're subscribed, like this video, share it, hit the notification bell, and consider getting a paid subscription to my channel. Until next time, God bless.